Hi guys, Rich from Art Smart. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Now, we're going to film quite an interesting video today, and I know this is going to be one of them that quite a lot of you are going to want to see. People obviously watch our content on social media all the time and are possibly thinking, so, how much does a Control 4 smart home really cost? Well, in this video, we're going to break it down for you. I'm going to take you through every element, there or thereabouts, of a Control 4 smart home. I'm going to associate some costs with it. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this so that if you're planning a project in 2021, you can work these figures into your budget. And then when you contact us for an inquiry, you have a rough idea of what this is going to cost you. Now, a lot of people think I'm mad for doing this video. However, same as everything that we do, we just like to be honest and transparent. So we're going to tell you. So, first and foremost in this video, I better start off by telling you that obviously these prices will be subject to a survey. So, we've just given you ballpark figures that you can work into your budget. All the pricing will be applicable to VAT, and all pricing and prices that I'm going to give you will correct as of December 2020. And then with little things like Brexit or how things may change on our supply chain and price increases and all the rest of it, these prices may fluctuate a little bit. But at the time of the video, everything was correct. Talking of VAT, obviously, if you are building a new build property, a lot of the things we can do for you, things that are part of the fabric of the building or part of the house, will actually be VAT exempt. So things such as the design, the lighting control, the main brains and functionality and power management and things like that, touchscreens, will be classed as VAT exempt items. Unfortunately, entertainment systems, music systems, that kind of stuff is still charged at normal rate VAT. Likewise, if you are buying and refurbishing a property, there will be some things that we can put through at a 5% VAT rate. But again, if you tell us about your circumstance on your project, we can work that in for you. Now, there is one other thing which we can help you with on your project, and that is because Art Smart have got a national network of trained partners, we can actually take control of the electrical element too and use one of our Art Smart approved partners to do the electrics on your smart home. So they are the same standard as all the AV stuff and all the smart home stuff you're accustomed to seeing with Art Smart. But on the flip side, if you already have an electrician lined up on your project, we can work with them. I'm an electrician by trade, so we're very good at making our drawings and documentation easy and understandable to be done by electricians. And who knows, we may end up putting your electrician onto our training academy anyway as part of the project. So anyway, let's get into the good stuff. So first, I better start off by telling you the process. So what you want to do when you're starting to look at a smart home and the planning. So in the very first instance, you want to look at doing your research on companies, finding people that you potentially may want to use for your smart home. What my advice to you on that is take a good look, find the companies with something like a smart home, because it is so tailored to you. There are a lot of companies that are being into just box shifting. So what I mean is coming in, setting up the smart home, very standard, very basic, not getting you the full functionality out of the smart home. There are lots of different things, and a Control 4 smart home is only ever as good as the company employ. So do your research. Do your research on the companies. I mean, a good one for me, it's easy for me to say because we are very active, but is the company active on social media? Is the company you're wanting to spend tens of thousands of pounds with actively posting the work they do? Are they showing you the behind the scenes work? Are they showing you what the inside of lighting control panels look like? Is the stuff behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see, is that following through with the same kind of quality and the same sort of standards? So social media is a great one for that, because it's not just looking at flashy pictures on people's website, case studies, stock images. You are seeing what them guys are doing day in, day out. Do they keep the quality? Are they consistent? Do they care on every single job? Are they trying to build good client relationships? Are they bringing their clients the most value out of this big financial investment they've just installed in their house? If the answer to any of the above is no, you may want to look for another company. Let's get on to the pricing. So once you've done your research and you found your company, you want to start making contact. So there's a couple of different ways you can make contact with Art Smart. You can either send us an email, hello@aos-group.co.uk. You can go on our website and click the contact us, and then one of our colleagues will be in touch with you. Or if you want to make it a little bit more informal, slide in our DMs, drop us a message on Instagram or any of our social media profiles and somebody will get back to you. We usually start with a very informal chat. You know, I think one of the reasons people enjoy working with us is we're pretty down to earth team. We'll keep the whole process fun, and we're going to take you through then, build up what you potentially want to do in your smart home, and encompass it all in. So what we'll do at the initial consultation is we'll create a wish list. So if money was no object, if you won the lottery next year, if you come into a lot of money, what would you want to have in that project? The reason why I want to find out that for is because we would recommend, especially if you're doing a smart home on a limited budget, pre-wire, pre-wire, pre-wire. So what I mean by that is, once you've told us what you're ultimately trying to achieve with them spaces, what might be the kids' playroom now might be a cinema in 5 years' time, who knows? We'll get the cable infrastructure all designed to facilitate all of these features and functionality for the lifespan of your project. We'll pull cables where you didn't even know that you needed to pull cables. And if anything, we're doing a pre-wire, I'm a little bit soft, because I just say to that, boys, if you're doing something and you see something else or an extra little bit of value we could add to this client later, get the cabling. There's nothing I love more than when a client turns around to me at the end of the job and says, oh, Rich, I really wish we'd have done, and we turn around and say, I've got cables in. So cable up that job as much as possible. Now, a lot of people think that these days, everything works on Wi-Fi, doesn't it? You know, I've got Wi-Fi speakers, Wi-Fi light bulbs, and the fact of the matter is, not really. We tend to design our smart homes so that just mobile devices such as phones or laptops are working on Wi-Fi. And if it can be hardwired, we would highly recommend you hardwire it. Just to do with things like the data transfers, the speed you can get, lacks of interference, lacks of Wi-Fi being overloaded, as little as possible on that Wi-Fi network, just the devices that move about. So once we've done that and we've got some plans, we will send you a first draft estimate. So the estimate will entail all the different features that I'm going to go through with you next. We break them all down into the different sections so you understand where the costs are coming from and what the costs are going to be. And then once you prove that, we then take a design fee. So the design fee is going to cover all the drawings and documentation on the job, which I'm going to cover next. But once that's done, we then get you a first draft set of plans. So we will design you the full smart home, we'll send you the plans, we'll show you the locations, and we'll go through all that together. Now, maybe even before this step, you might have come to visit one of our show homes. So we don't really like showrooms. I find showrooms are very much just products on a wall. We prefer to take you to meet one of our previous clients to show you their home, and so you can meet them, see how it was for them working with our Smart on a project, and rather than just seeing products on a wall, you can see products in an actual home environment. You can envisage how it's going to be within your home. And we're very fortunate enough that we've built some very, very good relationships with some awesome clients all over the UK. So if you contact us, we can let you know where those locations are and take you to see the project. So once we've got those plans approved and we're looking at coming on site, we need to be on site roughly the same time as your electricians. So whether you're using an ArtSmart partner electrician or you're using your own electrician, your smart home pre-wire wants to be done about roughly the same time. So what we'll do is we'll come down, we'll get the full cable infrastructure into the property, we'll let the builders do their thing, get the walls closed up, and then we come back and we terminate all those cables. So if you follow our Instagram or social media profiles or anything, the method I prefer when we're doing these projects is what we refer to as the termination box method. So all those cables in your house, we terminate them onto a nice patch panel, everything's labelled, everything gets tested out, we know exactly what's what, we know the cables aren't damaged, and then it doesn't matter if you stop there. So the budget may have run out, kitchen budget might have gone through the roof, you may have had some structural issues, but the most important thing at this point here is the cable infrastructure is in place. So it doesn't matter if you're going to do it next week, next month, next year, it's just a case of connecting the cables onto the infrastructure in the house. The other beauty is of doing a termination box method. We can bring the AV rack in, which is where all the money is, later down the line. It means that once all the trades have got out of the way, we can bring a pre-built, pre-programmed, pre-commissioned AV rack into the house. We can plug it into your house infrastructure and then commission it all on site and get everything working. But a little bit before that, once we've terminated the cables, electrical second fix is taken care of. We then will look at second fixing the speakers, the lighting panels, the electrical controls, the switches, and all the rest of the associated equipment in the smart home, so that once the rack comes in, it's just a case of plugging it in and commissioning it. Now, one thing I like to make people aware of from the outset is we will be the last trade in your property. That is a fact. That is an absolute fact. And the reason for that is because once the painter's done, once your builder's done, maybe even once your landscapers are done, we will be tailoring and personalising this smart home to you. So we're going to be setting it up, we're going to be ironing out any little kinks there is, any little bugs, and we're going to finesse this smart home to you and your family so that it really works for you. So this process might take a week, it might take a month, but usually what we'll do when you move in is we let you live with the house, we'll give you a couple of weeks, and then we come back and say, right, what do you want to change? What do you want to tweak? What do you want to improve? What lighting keypads maybe aren't you using? What buttons haven't you used on them? Is there any little shortcuts you want us to program into your touchscreen? And we will really get you the best bang for your buck out of that system. So once we finish that process and we've left the project, you are now taken care of by AOS Aftercare. So because of the nature of what we do, it's technology changes, manufacturers may do an update. We are on hand for you if needs be, from 9 AM to 11 PM, 7 days a week. Now, touch wood, you won't need us, but it's good to have that peace of mind that if you're there, somebody will answer the phone 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, all of our systems include remote monitoring equipment. So what that means is let's say worst case scenario, the internet's gone off, there is an issue, we can actually proactively deal upon that to be able to give you reasoning why. And most of the time we can create a fix remotely. Now, if we can't create a fix remotely, we'll get an AOS partner out to you the same, if not the next day, to do what needs to be done on site with us managing that remotely and dealing with that. So yeah, you are very well looked after by Art of Smart. So the design is the very first thing you need to look at and you need to pay for on a smart home. What the design is going to allow us to do is create some working drawings, some location drawings, a cable schedule so we know exactly what's going in. We may need to do a cinema design or a media room design. We have lighting panel drawings to do. We have an aftercare pack to do. We'll put together an O&M manual. We'll put together a user guide. And we'll put together all the documentation, drawing and an as-fit pack that is needed for the smart home. Depending on the size of your project, will depend on the size of the cost of this. We usually work it out on a percentage of the project value. But for the purposes of everything in this video, when I'm talking big numbers, we're going to aim it around a 4 or 5 bedroom home. So for the design on a 4 to 5 bedroom home, depending on the level of system that you are putting in, is going to cost you between £1,000 and £5,000. Now, this might sound like a lot of money if you've already got your architect doing some drawings, but the drawings and documentation we need to get put together for this is a completely different beast. So yeah, if you budget in for the design and the documentation between £1,000 and £5,000, at Smart Design, we'll get that part done for you. So once the design is done, it's onto the electrical element. Now, I mentioned before, we could use an AOS partner for this, but likewise, you could also use your own electrician. So you'd get your electrics done, but I would say, again, if you're looking at doing the electrical element on a smart home, you should be budgeting between £60 to £90 per point. So what I mean by per point pricing is a lot of electricians use this method, but per point would be per spotlight. So if you had 10 spotlights in a room, that would be classed as 10 points. If you then had 5 socket outlets in a room, that'd be an additional 5 points. So £60 to £90 per point. That will depend on what kind of finish you want on the accessory. If you're just happy with white plastic, you may want some fancier socket or switch connections. Again, that will bring the price up, but roughly £60 to £90 per point. And that will include like general lighting on a general kind of spec. If you're wanting something a little bit more bespoke on your lighting, maybe more intricate light fitting, something a little bit more unique, then obviously that price would increase. And at that point there, you may want to look at bringing a lighting designer into it. So for a basic lighting design, Art Smart can take care of that. However, if you're after something a bit more intricate, a bit more bespoke, something a bit more wow, then we work with lots of great lighting designers who can create a lighting design scheme for the house and providing a schedule of fittings. Now that service, again, on a 5 bedroom home, is going to be similar to your AV design, between about £1,000 and £5,000 for that design on there. So once everything's designed, we've got the electrics in, we're going to look at the pre-wire. Again, I'm working these figures on a 5 bedroom home. So a 4 or 5 bedroom detached home, really good spec, including everything. We've got a media room, audio, lighting, security, heating. You want the works. So the AV/smart home pre-wire is going to set you back about £10,000 to £15,000. Again, it could be less, It could be more, but for a 5-bedroom home, that is the kind of figure you're looking at. Now, the AV pre-wire is going to be a very similar kind of cost to your electrical work because it entails the same kind of thing. Now, people are often quite surprised about how many cables go into a smart home, how much rainbow spaghetti, but to do it properly, and when we do talking pre-wire and talking pre-wire costs, I'm talking about installation of the cables, the first fix, the installation of any specialist back boxes, bringing it right through to the termination box and the terminated stage, testing your cables out and the finished infrastructure. So roughly 10 to 15,000 pounds, about that kind of ballpark, won't take you far wrong. So now we've talked about the pre-wire, I've told you about the termination box. That is the cable infrastructure all in place from the house. The beauty again of this termination box method is in the kids' rooms, you might not want to put speakers in for now, or there may not be the budget to do all the garden audio, but because everything's on the termination box, it's all clear, it's all identified, anything can be added at any point. The most important part of the smart home process is getting those cables in place and the proper design done. So, termination box is there. Everything from here will now just plug into that. So any cost from here moving forward is for the hardware. If you're looking at a bit of a smaller system or like a one-off audio system, then it's going to encompass a bit of price from both of those sections. Multi-room audio. So this is a lot of people's favorite elements. So speakers in your house connected to a music system. Now the speakers in a smart home, especially a Control 4 smart home, can also act as the doorbell for your video intercom. They can be played as a single zone or grouped together if you're having a party. We can install speakers in all rooms in the house, in the bathrooms. We can have them in the kitchen, in the garden. We can put these speakers anywhere. So for a zone of audio, so when referring to a zone, it's a pair of speakers or a single zone, you're roughly in the 800 to 1,200 pounds per zone. So that includes decent speakers, fire hoods, and any amplification that's needed in the rack or backing control. That's for your speakers. You're about 800 to 1,200 pounds a zone. Now, if you didn't want to see loads of speakers on your ceiling everywhere, you may opt to put in invisible speakers. So we use Amina completely plastered in speakers, and you actually see nothing when these are in. So if you've got a really nice property and you don't want to ruin it with some big speakers on the ceiling, you're talking an additional uplift on that of about £500 per zone. So you're for a zone of invisible speakers, about 1,300 to 1,800 depending on the application. Now, if you're really into your music, you might want to pair that with a sub. So you might want to turn that zone of audio into a 2.1 zone and have a little bit more oomph. So a subwoofer is going to set you back in a 600 to 1,500 pound region, depending on the aesthetics. So if you're not bothered about a big box in the room, that's cool. If you want it to be hidden and just see a vent on the wall, you're obviously going to be a little bit more expensive. So that is roughly how much the multi-room audio is going to cost you. To go alongside the multi-room audio, we have video distribution. So video distribution for people is one of those costs that they don't always understand. So video distribution system or a video matrix is basically a piece of hardware in the rack, which means you can have your Skybox, Apple TVs, Roku's, CCTV, Virgin Media boxes, DVD players, Kaleidoscope players, all your AV kit sat inside the rack, out of the way, and get just a clean aesthetic in the rooms with your televisions. So a zone of video distribution is going to cost you 800 to 1,200 pounds per room. And if you would like the TV audio to come through the ceiling speakers in your room, you're more at 1,000 to 1,200 pound per zone. Now, video matrix systems usually come in different formats, such as a 4x4 system. So what that means is you can take 4 sources, so Sky, Sky Mini, CCTV and Apple TV, to 4 rooms. Then we step up to 8x8, 10x10, 16x16, and anything above the 16x16 region, we need to use a system called AV over IP. And again, you're going to work into similar kind of costs for that. So obviously, then watch something, you're going to need the television. And if I'm completely honest, we don't actually mind if clients want to get their own TVs. Strange, right? TVs these days, you can usually pick TVs up at retail cheaper than we can get them at trade anyway. And they're very, very low margin items. So if you've got a friend that works at John Lewis, it's actually cheaper for you to get the TV than I can supply the TV at anyway. So happy for you to do that. If you don't want to get involved with that, we can still manage the full procurement and we can manage that for you. But TVs, I'm going to tell you about the 3 major brands with Control 4. You need to be looking at either Sony, LG or Panasonic. And they're the three brands. Now, the reason I'm mentioning these three brands and why these work with Control 4 is down to what's called the integration. So that is how they work and how they play with the Control 4 system, which is very nice. Other brands outside of that, not so much, but we can make them work, just not as nice. So again, Samsung do make some of the best televisions, but unfortunately the integration is not amazing. But again, it can be done. So if you're a Samsung fan, do not worry. It still works with Control 4, just not smoothly. But let's talk back to the figures. So for a TV in your main TV areas, so maybe your kitchen snug, your living room, your kind of budget you want to be working in there for your television is going to be between £800 and £4,000, thereabouts. And then for your secondary rooms, so rooms that aren't maybe so important, so you maybe have a home office, the kids' rooms, somewhere in the £700 to £1,200 region will have you covered for televisions in there. Again, we're happy if you supply the TVs, we're happy if it's a TV you want to bring from your own house, or if you just say, listen, just take care of everything, we can manage it all. So I've mentioned having the speakers, I've mentioned having the TVs, but you might want a space in your house that is a little bit more special. You might be really into your films, your sports, your movies. You might want to have a better TV watching experience, and that is when we'd look at installing you a media room. So what do I mean by media room? A media room is a room where you have your television, but the speakers or audio system is a little bit more uplifted. So we'd look at putting in a surround sound system. Now that may be done with ceiling speakers or wall speakers, plastered in speakers, or some kind of a soundbar solution. But for a media room, you are looking roughly in the £8,000 to £15,000 region. So that includes everything, the TVs, the speakers, the amplification, any brackets and accessories, roughly £8,000 to £15,000. Now, if you wanted something a little bit more special, some slightly better speakers, a little bit of acoustic treatment on that, you're gonna be getting towards the 15 to 20 kind of mark. Now, if that kind of media room isn't what you're after, and you're after the full cinema experience, then we could look at doing a proper cinema room. Now, depending on who you talk to, will depend on what is classed as a cinema room. Now, for me, a proper cinema room has proper cinema seating, it has a fixed cinema screen, and the room is acoustically treated with a projector. That is a cinema room. So a cinema room is going to set you back roughly £30,000 to £50,000. That is for a kind of good cinema room, 6 chairs. Again, the cinema chairs can range from anything from £15,000 up to £5,000 each. If you're more inclined for a day bed in your cinema room, so a nice day bed, again, you're in the £5,000 to £10,000 region for the day bed. And then you've got your cinema room. If you need to put in a starlight ceiling, again, depending on the size, will depend on the cost of that. But for a half decent sized room, you could be up at as much as £10,000 for your starlight ceiling, which could then, with some decent cinema chairs, with the decent acoustic treatment, with the fabric walls, with the fixed screen and a decent projector, you could be in the £50,000 to £100,000 region for an all singing, all dancing cinema room. And then in some instances, you may even go above the £100,000 mark. Now, if you're not bothered about the acoustic treatment, if you're not bothered about the cinema chairs, if you're just after a cinema room with a projector, a screen, and half decent audio setup, you're probably going to be in the £10,000 to £20,000 bracket, similar to your media room. Now, you might want the best of both worlds. You might want to put in a media room that turns into a cinema room. So we refer to this as a stealth cinema. So this is when we can install a hidden projector lift, we've got a hidden screen, and then we've got the audio setup and a stealth cinema. So you could have that space as a dual functionality space. You could watch your TV Monday to Friday, but on a Saturday when you want to sit down with the kids and watch a movie, you can put it into cinema mode, and all the AV kit will drop down out of the ceiling. For that kind of solution, you're probably in a 20 to 30-ish kind of mark, maybe up to 35 if you wanted to put in plastered in speakers anywhere so you didn't see it. But for a stealth cinema, you're in that kind of money bracket. CCTV and security. So again, these are some of our most requested features. People, you want to protect your castle, you want to protect your home, you want to have perimeter security, you want to be able to see if DPD have dropped your delivery off or not. You want to have a security system. So when we talk security systems, what you need is a few things. You need to have a recorder. You need to have your cameras, and then we need to have a way to play it back. The way that we kind of price our cameras is the recorder and the recording capacity, we kind of build it into the camera costs, and we'll work back from there. So per camera installed with your recorder, you're roughly about the £400 mark is a good figure to work into your budget. Again, there are different specs on cameras, there are different features, there's 4K, we've got colour at night time, we've got built-in microphones, but again, just as a general ballpark, around £400. Now that is unless you want to install a pan-tilt zoom camera. So what do I mean by pan-tilt zoom? That is the absolute Mac Daddy of security. So around your property, you may have fixed CCTV cameras, but then what we may have on the corner of the property is a pan-tilt zoom camera. So what'll happen is if the analytics from any of the cameras detect motion around your property, the big camera will spin round and lock onto whatever it is causing it, and then it will track them around the property. For this kind of camera, you are in roughly the £800 to £2,000 range. It depends on the functionality. But again, let's go back to that 5-bedroom family home. You're roughly gonna have on there 8 CCTV cameras. So that would include around the property. We actually install one inside the garage and one inside the hallway looking back at the front door. And then on top of that, put in a PTZ camera on the corner of the property. My advice for you with CCTV is this. So similar to the video matrices, they come in 4-channel versions. So that means 4 cameras, come in 8, they come in 16, they come in 32. If you wanted 4 cameras around your property, install an 8-channel recorder. That gives you room for a little bit of growth without having to remove the recorder and upgrade that too. And the cost difference is honestly marginal. Again, if you're installing 7 or 8 cameras, I would recommend that you install the 16-channel recorder, again, to give you that little bit more room to grow. So to accompany that, we could look at an alarm system. So an intruder alarm system, again, we can go to different levels of specs. You might want to have Viper sensors in all the windows that detect shocks. You may want to have door contacts everywhere. You might want sensors in every single room, but let's talk as a general rule of thumb, your 5-bedroom property again, you're roughly in the £2,000 to £6,000 region for an intruder alarm system. Now that includes for it to be monitored, so the alarm system will be monitored, you'll get alerts if the alarm goes off, and that alarm system is actually going to integrate into your Control 4 system and all part as one system. Lighting control, probably one of my favorites. Now for lighting control, for those who haven't had it before, for me it makes a breaker space. So a lot of the time you end up with a grid switch, so like a big ugly light switch, especially in the kitchen diner spaces these days, that might be controlling 3, 6 or 9 or even 12 lights in a big kitchen diner these days. So instead of that, we replace it with a Control 4 keypad. Now for those of you that are watching this video and looking at retrofitting a smart home, instead of a new build installation, that is still possible using the traditional mains wiring. So looking back at the mains wiring, including the installation of that, you're talking to replace your light switches about £500 per switch. So if you had 10 switches in your house, your lighting system roughly is going to be about £5,000. Now it will need some control on the back of that, so again, I say roughly. But if it's a new build installation, each of the light switch positions, you roughly want to be looking at £250 per keypad / light switch. And then for each circuit of lighting, again, it will vary, but a good ballpark is about £150 to £250 per circuit. So what I mean by a circuit is you might have 10 spotlights that you want to come on together. That'll be one circuit. You might have 2 lamps in the room, but want them to come on independently. That would be 2 more circuits. So now we're up to 3 circuits in the room. You then may have a pendant. That would be 4 circuits. So for that in a room, you're at a ballpark around £1,000 a room for lighting control. Now you may want to make that lighting control a little bit more intricate. So LED strips, colour changing LED strips, as a ballpark figure, including your profile, your control and all the rest of it, for a single colour, so a warm white or a cool white LED strip, you're about £100 per linear metre. So for each metre of strip, if you had 5 metres, it'd be £500. That include the drivers, the installation, the tapes, the profiles, roughly £500. Now you may want to use colour changing tape. So where you've got all the colours under the sun, we can set it to come up blue, pink, you name it. You're going to be up about double, so that's about £200 per linear metre. Now with the RGB/RGBW tapes, we can actually do RGB with the true white instead of replicated white. Again, you're about similar sort of cost, £250 per linear metre. But don't forget, that's including your power supplies, your LED strip, the profile, the time to install it. All these figures I'm giving you are installed costs. So to control that lighting, you may want to put in some motion sensors. So maybe in the ensuite, you might want to walk in there in an evening and the lights automatically come on. So the motion sensors in a control force system actually work different than normal motion sensors, because we can actually make those events trigger different things depending on the time of day. So the motion sensors in your bathroom during the evening may bring all the lights on. However, between midnight and 7 AM, it might just bring the lights up onto 10% on the spotlights, or maybe just turn the vanity unit LED on. So for a motion sensor in a bathroom or a hallway, you're roughly about £250 a sensor. And again, you may want to put external sensors around the property to trigger outside lights and the like. Again, you're going to be about £250 a sensor. Next, we'll have a look at the Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi and network. So I'm not just talking the Wi-Fi boosters, and you may be thinking, well, I've gone with BT, they've sent me out a router. Unfortunately, on this kind of level of project, that's not going to cut the mustard. So the reason for that is, if you think on them Wi-Fi routers and them Wi-Fi boxes, internet service providers send you them free of charge, which tells me they've been made for very, very cheaply, and they're not designed for the level of communications in the modern home. So what we do first and foremost is we're going to replace the router with a package router. We're then going to use some managed network switches to control all the data and connect up all the LAN and data cables around your property. And then on top of that, we're going to install Wi-Fi boosters. Again, in most 5-bedroom homes these days, your Wi-Fi box won't cut it, so it's not going to make it to all the different parts of the home. So depending on the size of the property and the construction of property, if there's lots of foil back insulation, we may have to look at putting in additional boosters. But for the Wi-Fi network in a 5-bedroom home, you're in roughly the £2,000 to £5,000 region. So that includes all the Wi-Fi, all the network. And one of the nice features about using Art Smart and using us when we've done your system is, because we've got a very good insurance policy, if for some reason you're connected to a network that we have installed and you accidentally click on a phishing email and have your bank account emptied, I mean, it can happen. Even with the best level of security behind the network, things like that can happen. Well, the good news is we're covered up to £1 million of cyber security protection. So if we've installed your Wi-Fi for you and you accidentally click on the phishing email, our insurance policy will get you that money back. So that's pretty good. Nice little added bonus. So smart heating has made a massive rise over the last couple of years. So we're going to look at a couple of different options. First and foremost, it's probably one of my favourite ones, and that's the Nest thermostat. So those who have known the EOS journey will know that Nest thermostat played a massive part in that. But for a Nest thermostat, controlling a single zone of heating or a combi boiler, you're about the £400 mark. Now, if you've got a system boiler, so independent control of heating and hot water, you're going to be a little bit more for the labour to do the work behind that, so maybe £450. If you're looking at installing 2 Nest thermostats, so a multi-zone system, again, you're going to be multiples of 400 every time. But what if you just built a house, it's got underfloor heating everywhere, you maybe have radiators or underfloor heating again on the first floor, then you're going to need to look at underfloor heating thermostats. So for an 8-zone underfloor heating system, so that's with your controller for your manifold, all of your actuators, all the thermostats for the 8 zones, you're about at the £2,000 mark. Now, when we do our thermostats, we actually do them a little bit different. So what we prefer to do to give that really, really clean aesthetic is we install remote air probes. So the remote air probe will actually just be a tiny little temperature box mounted on the wall, but then the smart home will be able to read those temperatures and control your heating using that. For an 8-zone system with heating probes, you're about the £2,500 mark. So if you had underfloor heating on the ground floor, underfloor heating on the second floor, you'd be about £4,000 to £5,000, depending on whether you wanted air probes or not. Now, if you had radiators on the first floor, you're then left with 2 options. Is either we just put a single zone controller for the top floor that matches ground floor, or if you wanted a Nest thermostat on the wall, we can look at that and integrate it all together in the system. I would recommend going with a single solution. So that's your heating control taken care of. And underfloor heating, again, you're probably going to be about the £250 a zone for your control. Your heating mat will be taken care of separately in the electrical package. So to control the underfloor heating, and again, we do it the same. We'll hide the thermostat in the cupboard out of the way, give it all a really clean aesthetic, and you still get your warm toasty toes. AC controls. So if you are lucky enough to have an air conditioning unit going into your property, you're then going to need some kind of controls on it. So depending on whether it's a split system or a VRF system, changes the price dramatically. So if you've got a split system, so you've got a split unit air conditioning system on your wall, for us to integrate that, the first unit is going to, well, we're going to need to put a hub in to control those AC units, about £700, and then you're about £700 per zone. So if you had 5 zones of underfloor heating, the control on that is going to be £4,200. If you had a VRF unit, so VRF air conditioning system, it's actually going to be dramatically cheaper. You're going to be £2,000 for the full system. Again, there may be a little bit of programming, slightly different if you had loads of zones, but they're good figures to work into your preliminary budgets. Curtains and blinds. Now, this is always my favourite ones to talk about. I'm joking, it's not. Curtains and blinds are expensive. Now, a lot more expensive than you may think. So, for a standard size window, using one of the brands we work with, you're going to be in about the £700 to £1,000 region. Now, if you're wanting whisper quiet control, or if you have multiple blinds in the same region, you want them all to come down together, you're then going to be up to the £1,000 to £1,500 per zone. If you had a larger size window, again, you may be in the £1,000 to £1,500 per window, and it may be slightly more. If you had a bifold window, this is something you need to think about because you've got 2 options on a bifold. So say it was a 5-metre bifold with 5 individual panes, that would be technically 5 blinds. So that would be roughly about £5,000. Now, a more cost-effective solution of doing that would be using a curtain track with a voile on it. So that kind of solution with a voile, excluding your fabric, will let you or your interior designer sort that out. But for the control on a curtain track, you're about £1,500 to £2,000 for a motored control blind, curtain, sorry. It would be the same as if you had a bay window. The bay window would technically be classed as 3 blinds. Again, they may be slightly smaller, so the prices may be different, but as a not bad rule of thumb on there, £800, you're about £2,400 for that, whereas you could put in a curtain track instead for about £1,000, so the cost is going to work out cheaper. So although we predominantly do smart homes, I've included a little bit section on here for renewable energy. So OLEV is the Office of Low Emission Vehicles, and they'll actually give you £350 back on the installation, so that will get taken off the installation cost. So an electric car charger could cost you as little as £900. To accompany a car charger, you may want to put in some solar panels. Solar panels on your project are going to be in about the £5,000 to £5,500 for a 4 kilowatt system. Now that may be a little bit more, so £5,500 to £6,500 if you want to add on some solar edge monitoring, which is going to monitor the consumption, the energy and performance of all the individual panels. And then to accompany that even further on your renewables package, you may want to look at putting in some battery storage. So to store the surplus energy that you use in your home during the day that's produced by the solar panels and then can be discharged back into your home or into your charging your electric car, for a 7.5 kilowatt sun and battery storage system or battery storage system, you are looking at about £7,500 to £8,000. If you want to go full ham and we want to put in a 15 kilowatt system, you're going to need about the £15,000 to £16,000 region for the battery storage. So let's talk about how you're going to control your smart home, and that is using a touchscreen. So this is a controller that may be sited on the wall on a kitchen. You may have a wireless one on the bedside table. You may have a wireless one in the cinema room. But a control for touchscreen is a dedicated screen like an iPad, so looks like an iPad, apart from its sole use is to control the system. The reason why we use these over iPads, and personally I hate iPads in smart homes, is because when you touch that screen, it responds. The touchscreen just wakes up straight away, ready to perform its duty, because that's the whole point of a smart home. That's quick, it's convenient, it's easy. So a touchscreen, the control for T3 touchscreen comes in 2 versions. Now the T3 touchscreen is a couple of years old now, but a T3 touchscreen will cost you between £800 and £1,200. That's a good kind of figure to work into your budget for a touchscreen. And then the new T4 touchscreens that they've just brought out. So a T4 touchscreen is going to cost you somewhere in the region of £1,000 to £1,300. So the T3s come in a 7 and a 10-inch version, both on-wall and wireless, and in black and in white. And you get the same kind of varieties from the T4. So apart from there, in 8-inch and 10-inch. So you have an on-wall or a wireless. And again, they come in both black and white. But when you're watching TV, I find it really cumbersome when people design touchscreens to control TVs. Believe me, it is not an ergonomic solution. It's not a nice user experience. The same as if you were to use your mobile phone. For me, for watching television, you want a dedicated remote control. And luckily, Control 4 have got a couple of options for you. So your two options are the hard buttoned remote control, the SR260. Now, whereas this remote might not look very sexy, in terms of its ergonomics and its performance, it is the workhorse. Personally, it's my favourite remote control. So they have custom buttons on them, which have 1, 2 and 3, and we can program these buttons to do all sorts of different features within your smart home, but usually we will have 1, put the lights in the room all on, 2, set them down to a chill so it's a little bit more cozy, and 3, turn the lights off in the space. The blue button that they have on the remote control as well, we quite often will use that as a blind toggle. So if you've got blinds or shades or curtains in the room, the blue button will toggle those for you as well. But what else the Control 4 remote does is if you press the watch menu, so say for example, we have a TV, we've got video distribution, we have ceiling speakers and an audio system as part of the solution, you press watch, Sky, that'll turn the television on, it'll turn it onto the Sky, it'll turn that remote into the Sky remote, and the volume controls will control whether it be the TV or the application behind it, they will do that. So instead of having a coffee table full of remotes, you end up with a single remote. And the hard button SR260 with a charging station is going to set you back roughly £250. But you might want something a little bit more sexy. So the Neo remote control is the new remote control from Control 4, and it is uber sexy. So it looks great on the coffee table. It has a touch screen instead of lots of hard button remote controls. So it doesn't have as many buttons. The transport controls are done through the touch screen. However, you do have access to lots of different features saved as favorites on the touchscreen. You can access them on the hard button remote, but it's through menus. But on the touchscreen, your favorites are all there. So if you need to turn the fireplace on, you've got it through the remote control. If you wanted to open a window or curtain or blinds or shades, it can all be done through the favorites on the home page of the Neo remote control. But one of these remote controls with a charging dock will set you back £650. Video intercoms. So the last couple of years I've seen the rise of the video intercom, and most video intercoms are great. You can have alerts from the video intercoms. It can ring when you're out and you don't miss your Amazon parcel, but a Control 4 intercoms just take it a little bit further. Same as anything that's properly integrated into the system, you just got that extra level of cool and convenience. So what can we do with an intercom, and how much do they cost? So they come in a couple of different flavors. So we have the DS2 Mini, which is a touchscreen with a call button. And then we have the DS2 keypad. So the DS2 keypad is great for areas that have gates. So you have an electric gate, you maybe want a keypad in so you can punch your code in. So the DS2 Mini is going to set you back about £900, whereas the DS2 with a keypad and the gate control is going to set you back £1,300, £1,400. It comes in a satin nickel and a kind of black version. But then most recently, Control 4 brought out a doorbell called the Chime. So it's a little bit cuter, it's a little bit smaller, and that's going to set you back about £700. Now the beauty of the Chime is, especially on a retrofit installation, these can be connected onto the Wi-Fi. So if you maybe just have an old doorbell with a doorbell wire, the Control 4 Chime doorbell can be integrated. The Control 4 intercoms, whether it be Chime, DS2 Mini or a DS2 keypad, will call all the Control 4 touchscreens in your house. We can also have it do a ding-dong through the ceiling speakers of your multi-room audio system, or we can have it do a quick scan of the house when the button is pressed and see if any TVs are on. We can then have the intercom camera come up onto the screen on the television, and we might have a start button on your remote control opens the gate. So if you have the image pop up, you see it's the mother-in-law, you can press the star, let her in, and that's job done. Now, what about the multi-room audio waking the kids up on a night? So the kids have gone to bed. We will program the system so that when the kids have gone to bed on an evening, again as part of our process with you and getting to know you and getting to know your family and really wanting to make this system work for you, we're going to find out what time your kids are going to bed. So say if you're lucky enough and the kids go to bed at 7 o'clock, after 7 o'clock on an evening, the ding dong will no longer come through the ceiling speakers. but instead, the rooms that you're in, the lights may flash twice. It may alert you that somebody's at the door by the lights flashing. The intercoms, whether the chime, again, DS2 Mini or DS2 keypad, will all ring through to your mobile phone. So if you're away from the property, you can answer the call on your mobile phone, you can open the gate remotely, you can turn on the outside lights, you can open up a lockbox for a delivery driver, you've got complete control. So I've gone through all the different elements of the smart home. What about the back end? How is all this kind of stuff controlled? So Control 4 obviously has a main brain. These are referred to as the processor. Now, depending on the size of the property, it will depend on what kind of processor you need. But again, for the 5-bedroom property, Control 4 EA5 processor is probably going to set you back, including setup, around the £3,000 mark. You may want to go for something a little bit faster. So the CA10 processor is the Ferrari of the Control 4 processors. It's 4 times faster than the EA5, so the app will load instantly, half a second, makes smart run really fast. It's got dual redundancy in it, so dual power supplies, it's got dual processors, it's got dual SSDs. So if, when people worry about if anything ever happens, this processor completely has you covered. That is going to set you up about £3,500, £4,000 mark. Now, what we like to do on our properties, and again, I mentioned the intercom example before with it coming onto the screen. So to complete that, we need to put in an EA1 processor. So an EA1 processor is going to set you back between £750 and £1,000. And on a 5-bedroom property, we'd usually look at siting 2 or 3 of these around the property, which also help with the Control 4 Zigbee signal. So that's your Control 4 processors. Now your Control 4 processors, your audio system, your video matrix, all your video sources, your CCTV recorders, your network, Wi-Fi switches all need to go somewhere. And where we put these is in a rack. Now, if you followed us for a while, you know that there's a lot of work, love, care and attention that go into an Art Smart rack. That's so not only so it looks good when it's put in the cupboard or down in your basement, but it's so that if ever any additions, changes, alterations need to be made to it, and also when you can see that even the back end of the system is done that well, you know the rest of it is going to be taken care of. So installation of a rack on a 5-bedroom kind of property, for the rack and the connection and connection of all the components from all the different elements, you're roughly talking for a rack between £1,000 and £3,000 for the rack and to terminate it. Upon our racks, obviously, we can remotely monitor all the systems. So the reason we do that is so we know if there's ever an issue before you do. So what we put in there is a UPS and a power distribution unit, so an IP PDU. So that is a power distribution unit that's connected to the internet. And what that does is gives us the ability to reset devices in the rack. Now, it may be a phone call once every 6 months because your Skybox is locked up, but what that means is I can fix that issue there and then within 5 minutes for you. We can get the issue fixed same day. For UPS on a power management on a project, depending on how long you want the UPS battery backup to last, if there is a power cut to keep the Wi-Fi and the CCTV running, you're roughly going to be about £1,000 to £3,000. So I mentioned there we would sort that out for you, and I also mentioned at the beginning of the video what would happen after the snagging phase after we'd left your property. So with it being technology, things will go wrong from time to time. Your Skybox is going to lock up, your TV is going to run an update and throw the system out, you're going to have a prolonged power cut and things are going to need rebooting. So we have an aftercare department at Art Smart called AOS Aftercare, which will take care of all that for you. So we have a dedicated support line where you can ring if you're an Art Smart Aftercare customer from 9 AM to 11 PM, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we can fix your issues remotely. Now, if an issue cannot be fixed remotely, then we will attend site, or if we're happy with it, we'll get one of our approved partners to attend site to diagnose and fix the issue, and we'll usually try and get this done same day, if not next day. So that was part of the reason of us building a partner network, is that we had a rock solid support network in place all over the country. So that will also, your aftercare will take care of your annual service. So with an annual service, you wouldn't buy a Porsche and never take it to a garage to get serviced. You wouldn't have a boiler in your house and not get the plumber in once a year to service it. It's exactly the same with a smart home. When we're looking after your network, when we're looking after all the security equipment, depending on the size of the project, I would recommend a service every 6 to 12 months. And again, depending on the size of the project, is going to depend on what your aftercare is going to cost you. But somewhere within the £100 to £200 a month region, again, depending on the size of the project, in a 5-bedroom home, you're roughly going to be at about £100 a month. Now, what we do with AOS Aftercare is we'll let you pay that monthly on a direct debit, or you can pay a year up front. What we do with the aftercare though is that will include any changes, tweaks, alterations to your programming. It includes the annual service, and it also includes what's called Foresight. So Foresight is the control for remote access. So if you want to have the intercom, if you want to be able to log into your smart home remotely, then you're going to need Foresight, and that's going to cost you £99 a year, or unless you're an AOS aftercare customer, in which case we include it. So I've taken you there from the design right the way through to aftercare, and we've looked at all the different steps in between. We've given you some preliminary figures to work into your budget, but the best thing you can do now is to get in contact with ArtSmart at hello@aos-group.co.uk, or send us a DM on social media platforms, and then we can begin the next steps of the journey. So the most important thing of that is, if you want to use ArtSmart in your project, we will work with you. I understand that the budget required for this kind of stuff is substantial, and if you're wanting to use us on your project, we will make the budgets work. We will value engineer certain elements of the smart home. Maybe you're not really bothered about it, certain levels of audio in the kids' room, so we can look at dropping those down. Again, the figures are just preliminary and will change and fluctuate based on a couple of different factors. But hopefully we've answered everything you're after in this video. For one final bit, I'm going to take you through some of our projects, and I'm going to share with you how much they cost. So for those of you that are following us on the social, the first kind of project I'm going to take you through the pricing on is going to be takeover jobs. So what do I mean by a takeover job? Well, that's when you've gone with a company, they've not delivered, the AV rack looks like a rat's nest, the system's not living up to your expectations, and you've paid a lot of money for a big mess in your cupboard. We call those takeover projects, also known as upgrades. So those takeover projects, for us to come in, strip it all back, find out what all those messy cables are doing, connect it back up into a beautiful rack like ArtSmart are renowned for, is going to, again, depending on the size of the project, there are lots of variables, and depending on what hardware we need to put in and to upgrade, as a starting point, you're going to be in the £5,000 to £10,000 region, with an average takeover costing between £5,000 and £20,000. So if you've gone through the process of having a smart home done by a company who haven't delivered, you could end up paying just as much as it costs you to have it installed, to have it stripped out and put back in properly. Unfortunately, probably 30% of our business is going in and fixing other AV installations. So yeah, a takeover, 5 to 10, but as much as up to £20,000. So first project I'm going to take you through is one of our projects in York. So this is a beautiful contemporary house. It's not the largest house we've ever worked in, but you know what? It ticks a lot of the boxes. So this house, we carried out the full electrical installation using high quality Focus SB electrical accessories. We did full electrical fit out, the full pre-wire. This house has a stealth cinema, so I can remember I mentioned before about the drop down screen with the drop down projector lift. This house also has amina plastered in speakers and an additional zone of speakers in the kitchen. It has full lighting control throughout the property, 4 external CCTV cameras. We have a video intercom and gate control. We have the lighting keypads throughout the home. We've got some really cool LED details throughout the house. I think this house has about 100 linear meters of LED strip in it. And then we have 5 blinds on the bifolds, then air conditioning control. This was a complete new build project, so it fell under the zero VAT rules. And this project would set you back around the £60,000 to £70,000 mark for a complete project. Next one we're going to have a look at with is our Boroughbridge project. So again, this was a complete new build project. It's a 4-bedroom detached family home. We actually put quite a large system in this for the size of the property, but the client knew he wanted it and he made it work with his budget. So this house has 12 zones of speakers. So we've got 12 rooms with audio. We have 4 zones of video distribution. We have 2 rooms with RGBW lighting control, so color changing lighting in the lounge and also in the kitchen. We have a control for touchscreen on the wall. We have 4 of the SR260 hard button remote controls. We've got a Dolby Atmos surround sound system in the lounge. We have external motion sensors. We have external CCTV cameras. We've got 6 of those. We've got full Wi-Fi throughout the property. So this kind of system is going to need to have a termination box on the wall, which is about 21U. And then we had 2 27U racks in there. And this project again was a zero VAT project. The house also has electric shades in most of the rooms. So for something like this, on this kind of property, to this kind of spec, I mean, this one does have all the bells and whistles. motion sensors internally and externally. It's got everything. You're in about the 60 to 80,000 pound region. So our Leicester project. So really good project, really nice family. This one again, and this is a 4-bedroom detached family home. We had everything. We had the full heating control. We didn't do the electrics on the project. The electrics were done by one of our partners, Four Electrical down in Leicester. Really good set of guys. But so they've done all the electrics. We've got 8 zones of audio. We've got DS2 mini video intercom. We have some LED control, but again, the electricians did that. This house has a really advanced security system. So we've got sensors in all of the rooms. We've got door contacts. We have the shock sensors. It has loads of external motion sensors. When I say a lot, it's got a lot. We have 10 CCTV cameras. Security was a really important element on this project. We have blind controls. It's got it all. So for this, you'd be in roughly, excluding the electrics, the 70 to 90,000 pound region. Our Alderley Edge farmhouse project. Now this is a stunning house owned by an interior designer where we originally just brought in to do the kitchen extension, however ended up running the system throughout the full house. So we'd given this house a partial rewire, a full rewire out in the outbuilding where we put a media room. We did a full electrical installation on the extension. There's loads and loads and loads of LED detail strips on this job, so loads of LED tape throughout the property. It's pre-wired for blinds. We have underfloor heating and heating control throughout the property. We have 6 zones of video distribution. We have 4 zones of audio in the main house, including some 24 karat gold Gallo acoustic speakers. And then over in the media room, we went for a 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos surround sound system, which encompasses a custom whip soundbar matched to the television. On this project, we supply quite a few of the televisions. And again, something of this kind of level, including the electrical work, you're in about the 70 to 90,000 pound region. Our Cheshire Manor House project. Now, for those electricians that are watching this video, this was the largest lived-in rewire that we'd ever undertaken. So this house actually was lived in throughout the whole period of us doing the renovation works. So the clients would move from wing to wing, depending on where we're at on the job. So we have full retrofit lighting within the full property, encompassing all the rooms of the 9,000 square foot home. We have 12 zones of audio. We have 10 zones of video distribution. We've got a 5.1 system in the master suite in the bedroom. We have a 2.1 soundbar down in the snug area. We've got a 10 camera CCTV system, including a pan tilt zoom controller. Because of the size of the estate, we have fibre optic links running between the buildings. This house here has a 30U termination box and 2 36U racks. And the system on this house, including the electrical work and all new electrical accessories throughout, is about £150,000. Now, we've just recently completed an extension for this client as well. So I say extension, it's 3,000 square foot, completed to an unbelievably high spec, including an Atmos in the lounge, automated windows, so the windows and the bifolds actually come open. There's over 100 linear meters of LED strip control, lots of floor boxes, 6 zones of heating control within the extension. An extension of that caliber and of that specification, I mean, 3,000 square foot is a home again, but you're looking at around the 50 to 60,000 pounds for the work in the extension of that spec. The additional equipment that we've put in on that job actually has gone into the main rack and termination box. And we have been really lucky on that job that we've got a 3 square meter rack room. So that one is an absolutely all singing, all dancing system. Let's have a look at our project over in Knutsford now. So the Knutsford project, we actually did the pool house for the client as a trial. So we installed a £30,000 system into the pool house as a trial. So the pool system had full Wi-Fi, it had 6 zones of video distribution, it had a 5.1 Gallo acoustic surround sound system. We integrated the alarm, we integrated the CCTV into that property, and the pool house has 8 zones of audio throughout there too, as well as full lighting control. So that is controlled by a 27U rack with an 18U termination box. And basically with that job there, some of the hardware that we'd put in on that phase is going to go across into the main house. So the main house is a 6,000 square foot property. And again, this system is an all singing, all dancing system. We have 12 zones of audio. We have 10 zones of video distribution. We have 200 linear meters of RGBW lighting control throughout the property. We have 16 CCTV cameras, including 2 pan tilt zooms. We have 24 zones of heating control, 24 zones. full lighting control throughout the property, obviously a Wi-Fi and all linked through to the pool house on a single system. We have gate control, we have 4 touchscreens, and this project is an all singing, all dancing system. And on top of the 30 grand that we spent on the pool house, the main house was about £150,000 mark. Now, to go into that house as well, there is a dedicated cinema room in the basement, and depending on the final specs that the client goes for, that room is going to be somewhere in the region of £30,000 to £100,000, depending on what goes into that room there. And that concludes our video. So we've taken you through all the pricing elements of the video. I've taken you through some of our projects to try and give you realistic figures of a complete home system. Don't forget though that these projects are so truly bespoke, and what we've put in some of these projects, you may not want in your own project. And again, we'll work with you to get it right and to where it needs to be. So hopefully this video has been really informative. Hopefully it's given you an indication of what a Control4 smart home really costs, and it's giving you some ideas. Now, if we've still got your interest and you are looking at doing a smart home, drop us an email at hello@aos-group.co.uk. Thank you very much.